Okay, I think we're live. Yes, we are. So, good morning, everybody. This is Jeff Goldberg from the Sales Pro Network, coming to you live from Long Island this morning on a special Monday edition of Facebook Live. I'm really excited today, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. I'm the founder of the group, the Sales Pro Network, here on Facebook and on LinkedIn, although we're really not very active on LinkedIn yet. And I founded this network to be a place where salespeople like you and me can come to ask questions and get coaching, not just from myself as a sales trainer, but from other wonderful sales training experts and sales gurus like our guest today. You can get your questions answered. You can share your challenges, your successes, and it's a place where you can come usually every other Friday to see a great Facebook Live interview with fantastic guests, because turns out I just know a heck of a lot of really great people, and it's my pleasure to introduce the next one. Please join me in welcoming Adrienne Miller of Adrienne Miller Sales Training. Good morning, Adrienne.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, everybody. This is great. Thank you for having me and joining everybody on Facebook and Zoom and everywhere else we find ourselves these days.
Adrienne, if you would please, first of all, thank you for joining us today. Today, we're going to do something a little different. Normally, I interview our guests, but Adrienne and I are going to do what we call the Adrienne and Jeff Show. We've done this numerous times in front of live audiences. Usually we have a PowerPoint that we can show, but I was unable to figure out how to show both of us and the PowerPoint, so we're PowerPointless today. We're naked. Maybe this is Adrienne and Jeff Show Unplugged. We'll each give you our 5 top tips for increasing your sales and improving your performance. But before we do that, Adrienne, could you just give a little bit about your background and your history, how you got into this crazy business of sales training, and maybe tell people a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you. So this is so much fun to get to do this with Jeff again. I love doing it face-to-face and in person, and hopefully we'll get to do that again soon. But this is going to be a fun, hopefully very beneficial session. So yeah, I've been doing sales consulting and training for, oh my gosh, 32 years. And it's been a great ride. I love doing it. I started doing it after working in advertising and marketing, and started my own business thinking it was going to be a one-year gig. Found out that I was happy doing it and found out I was pretty good doing it, and hence 32 years later. And we work with clients across every vertical, doing very customized sales training, but also a lot of sales strategy, lead generation, development for some of our smaller and middle-sized clients. I'm also a writer. I run a networking community and an integrated marketing company. And I was going to say, in my spare time, I travel. We can't do that now. I go to the theater. We can't do that now. I like to do lots of cultural things. We can't do that now. So I'm basically doing all of those 4 business things 24/7.
Yeah, I was going to ask when you sleep, but I know you barely do. Plus, you've got a beautiful granddaughter that you're watching grow up. And I have to say that Adrienne is my not my guru, but my wannabe when I grow up, in terms of going to the theater, because as much as I love the theater, she goes 20,000 times more than me. And I love watching you travel on Facebook. It's great to see your pictures, because you are truly a highly experienced world traveler.
Thank you. I can't wait to go again, but I'm not going to be one of those first people on those planes.
I got it. And good morning to Lee Green, Beth Granger, hi, Larry Weiss. Beth Granger twice, beautiful. And Beth saying, hi, neighbor. So I'm going to jump us right in. We'd like to give you each our 5 top tips for increasing your sales and being more effective and bringing yourself in more money. And since I usually go first, I guess I'm going to stick with that, Adrienne. And my first tip is consistent prospecting, because there's a direct relationship between prospecting and getting paid. In fact, when I work with a coaching client, the first thing we do is we set a goal, because you have to have a goal to work towards. But the second thing we do is I ask people to show me their calendar. And the reason I ask them to show me their calendar is because I'm looking for something in particular. And that particular thing is, when are you prospecting? Because there's absolutely, in my opinion, almost nothing, and maybe nothing, that you can do as a salesperson that's more important than consistently prospecting. And by consistently, I mean each and every day, even if it's just a little bit. And the reason is There is a relationship between prospecting today and getting paid tomorrow, but it's not that you prospect today and you get paid tomorrow. In fact, you prospect today and you get paid somewhere way down the line tomorrow. And if I could show you a PowerPoint explanation of this, it would show you a long flow chart of how long it takes me to get paid. And I'm going to shorten the story to 15 seconds instead of the usual 5. But typically, from the time I first meet with somebody, and Adrian, maybe you can back me up on how this works for you. From the time I first meet with somebody for training purposes till the time I get paid, it's about 4 to 4.5 months. From the time we first have a meeting, and then we actually typically have 3 meetings over an 8-week period, because I have about an 8-week sales cycle. When somebody finally shakes my hand and says, yes, Jeff, we'd like to use you for training, they don't give me a check that day, because on that day, we have to pick training dates. We have to bring people in possibly from a small area, maybe from across the country, sometimes from around the world. We've got to coordinate all their calendars with the VP of sales or the owner's calendar, plus my calendar. I have to write the program, put together the workbook. A room has to be booked. There's a lot of things that have to happen from the time I first meet with somebody till the time I actually get paid. And typically that is about 4 to 4.5 months. And my point is, if I do not prospect today, I can't get a paycheck 4 to 4.5 months from today. And if I don't prospect tomorrow, I can't get a paycheck 4.5 months from tomorrow. Now, the fact is, like Adrian, I own my own business. I don't need a paycheck every day, because when the checks do come in, they go into my hot little pocket. But I certainly don't want to go more than a couple of weeks or maybe a month, 2 at the most, without getting paychecks. And the thing that I find happens most often, and Adrian, I'd love to hear your comments on this, is when we're salespeople and we're selling, we get busy, because by closing deals, we now have to perform. We have to fulfill on those deals. So we get busy. And typically the first thing to go is prospecting. So consistent prospecting to me is my #1 tip for making sure you get paid consistently. Maybe before you go on to your first thing, Adrian, could you comment on that at all?
Absolutely. And I agree with you 100%. And you explained it perfectly. And I usually explain it with peaks and valleys. And so exactly right. When you have done your prospecting and the business comes in, you get so incredibly busy doing the work that you push off prospecting, because maybe it wasn't your most favorite thing to do anyway. And so you push it off. And when you do that, you can count out the weeks or months that you will fall into that valley. So I agree with you, Jeff. You may not be doing a full blown out prospecting initiative, but you have to do something every day. Every day, 5 phone calls, some emails, connecting on social media, something that will put you in the mind's eye of the people you need to speak with.
Good. And I know you have more tips on that stuff when we talk about the 3 I's, but what was your first tip?
Okay, my first tip is what makes you different, because you can do all this wonderful prospecting. In fact, you can do all this great stuff and still have a tough time winning new business if you have not been able to come up with what makes you different in the marketplace. Understanding the marketplace is incredibly competitive and filled with honorable competitors, not just the people who really, pardon me, suck at what they do. But when you're selling, I hate the word against, but when I'm selling against Jeff, I know I have someone who knows his stuff, who's excellent, who's expert, and so I need to know what makes me different. But beyond what makes me different, it's how my points of differentiation equal an improvement for that prospective client. Because if it's not an improvement over what they're currently doing, which is often nothing, or who they're currently looking at as a resource, the cliche, the devil I know is better than the devil I don't, absolutely comes through. So you have to know what makes you different, and then you need to transition that in your mind, say what that means to you is, or therefore you'll be able to, or ensuring you of, and make it a core benefit. Okay, make it a core benefit. Something will help save them money, make them money, save them time, peace of mind and confidence, convenience, status, or health. And pretty much every one of us, no matter what business you're in out there, can circle around those core benefits and should be able to come up with one, two, or three that your product or service offers to your prospective client. Because if it doesn't, why the heck should they do business with you? Why should they make a change?
That's great. A couple of things. One is you point out the crucial necessity for pointing out the benefits to prospects. And so many salespeople, even highly tenured salespeople, don't seem to get the difference between features and benefits. But it's crucial that we point them out. And I'm often argued with by people. Well, when you talk about the features, the prospect understands the benefit. I don't want to take a chance on that. And I think that, like you, I think the easiest way to tie every feature to its corresponding benefit is to talk about the feature and then say exactly, and here's what that means for you, or and here's how that helps you, or and here's what that does for you, because I'd rather take the chance on insulting a prospect's intelligence by pointing it out than take the risk of them not seeing the benefit and us walking out without a sale. The other thing I wanted to bring up is quite often when people are talking about what makes them different, they often confuse that with what makes them better. And I know you have some strong feelings on that. Could you elaborate a little bit?
Totally. Better, if someone tells you, this is why I'm better, their shoulder blades, your shoulder blades immediately go up. You become defensive because no one ever says, I'm not better. Okay. So when people have been sold that bill of goods forever and a day. So it is a much more impactful statement to say what makes me different is, or actually, would you like to know what makes us different? And if they say no, the opportunity to sell is actually very, very, very slim. So you're kind of screening and qualifying them anyway. What you said, first of all, in writing, there's an old cliche, features tell, benefits sell. Okay. And what I do sometimes I too hover in the, oh my God, I hope they don't think that I don't imagine they already know this. And I may start with, hey, Jeff, I know you know this, or I'm sure you're aware of this, but just bear with me. Let me just go through this one more time. And I kind of soften it and package it a little bit to make them feel a little less resentful. But the word better is a very problematic word. Lots and lots of salespeople use that, much to their chagrin. What they get is a highly defensive prospect. Highly defensive prospect.
Yeah, what we want is the prospect to see that what you're offering is better in their own mind, but for us to point it out, especially when we're selling against an incumbent, what you're saying is, oh, I'm better, which means you made a stupid decision previously, and why would you want to insult the person that you want to do business with you? It doesn't make sense.
Oh, you're working with them? Oh, silly you, we're so much better.
Yeah. Those guys suck, you're an idiot.
Right.
Now buy from me, please. Yeah, right. It doesn't work. The next point that I've got, the next tip is what I always tell audiences: if you only learned one thing from spending an hour or a day with me, this is, now, of course, like Adrian, I give lots and lots and lots of information in every talk and every training, but if people only walked away with one thing, this would be the one thing that I wanted them to learn. And I call it the BNAS, and that stands for the Best Next Action Step Philosophy. It's very simple. It simply means you never leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. And I know that those who've heard me speak on this before probably think I'm a broken record, but I can tell you that if you only took one thing away from any interaction with me, this really is the one I'd want you to get, because I guarantee you it's a moneymaker. I guarantee this one thing will put money in your pocket if you make it an unbreakable rule to never leave a meeting or a phone call without setting up the next meeting or phone call right then and there. Because here's how it typically works. If I was trying to sell Adrian my services, it would probably end something like this at the end of the first meeting. Let's assume Adrian's a vice president of sales at a large organization. She'd hear something like this: well, Adrian, you know what? You've given me a ton of great information today, and here's what I think we should do. I'd like to go back to my office think about everything we've talked about, put together some ideas on paper on how we can increase sales at Adrian Miller Co. And once I've got that all written up, I'll give you a call. We can set up another appointment. I'll come by and share that information with you. And then you'll have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. How does that sound to you, Adrian? And the Adrian in that case always says,
absolutely. When can we have that date?
Yeah, they always say absolutely, or sounds good, or terrific, because what they are really saying there, yes, is it's okay if you, Jeff, go back to your office, write up a proposal, call me. Didn't say I'd take the call. Excuse me, didn't say I'd take the meeting. It's okay if you go do a bunch of work and then call me. However, a far better way would be to end the meeting like this. Hey, Adrian, you've given me a lot of great information today, and here's what I think we should do. In my professional opinion, I think I should go back to my office, think about everything we've talked about, put some ideas on paper on how we can increase sales at Adrian Miller Co. And I'd like to come back and show you that outline of ideas next Tuesday at 3 o'clock. How does that sound to you, Adrian?
Okay, so I'm going to play devil's advocate. I'm going to say, well, it may be a little premature. Don't you think? Can you give me time to think about it?
Right, except there's nothing for you to think about yet. All I want to do is come back and share my ideas with you, because what's going to happen at that meeting is I'm going to go over my ideas. I'm going to get your feedback and maybe put some tweaks in there. And then I'll either set another meeting to come back and share my revised ideas, or if you just need some time, you can take that, because what I want to do is I want to give you all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. So would it be okay if I come back and just share my initial ideas next Tuesday at 3?
Sure.
Now, what did Adrian just tell me? What she told me was, I'm interested. Because Adrian, a busy executive, whether she's the president or the CEO or the VP of sales or whatever her title is, she's a busy executive who has already given me some of her time. And when she agrees to give me more of her valuable time, she's telling me she's interested. And I know that I speak for both of us when I tell you, we only want to work with interested people. They're busy, we're busy, and we need to have some way to figure out, are they interested? In the way I do it is, will you give me some more of your valuable time to see my proposal? Adrian?
So you know what this eliminates totally, and this, I hear this from people. I've sent out all these proposals and I can't get back in touch. They don't return my call. They don't answer my email. They are just ghosting me. And I asked the same thing. What did you do? And they did it 100% wrong, and they may never get back in touch, and they may have to just show up at their door, and even then they probably won't see them. So it also, I always think that getting a proposal to someone without, let me start again. When someone gets your proposal, they should already know what's in it. This should not be a surprise. It should be, he's going to do what? Oh my God, I didn't know that. It costs what? Oh my God, I didn't know that. So your proposal is pretty much confirming what you've discussed in any meeting leading up to the fact that they get a document. There's no surprise. It's confirmation. If it's a surprise, you have a good chance of never hearing their feedback from it. Yep. So having that action step is imperative. So yes, it is a great, most important takeaway. My next thing, I think, is a great, most important takeaway, although I must say...
And 1 second. Wait. I just want to finish this point because I think it's so crucial. First of all, you're moving things forward and only working with interested people. And absolutely, there's no way you should leave that first meeting without throwing out some idea of what you're going to do, including some pricing. So look, Adrian and I work in a business where we pretty much know what we're going to do before we even leave your office, and all we have to do is write it up. So I would certainly say, Adrian, based on just this initial discussion, my gut says we're looking at doing this and that and the other. Of course, I'm going to go back and write it all up, but this and that and the other thing. And you're in the area. I'm thinking something like 60, 65,000. Is that about what you had in mind? Because I don't want to come back with a $60,000 or $65,000 proposal and have Adrian go, oh, I'd love to do that. We only have 20,000. Or to know that, I could have gone higher because she wanted more. So you want to put out a little feeler. And the other thing this does is when you get that meeting is you shorten the sales cycle, because instead of having to call Adrienne 15 times till she finally either picks up the phone or gets back to me and we eventually get in contact with each other, and setting that next appointment, which is going to be a week or 2 or 3 weeks in the future from whenever we hook up because we're both busy, I've saved somewhere between 1 to 4 weeks off my sales cycle each and every time. So please, the best next action step philosophy, 100% crucial. Adrienne, you're next then?
Okay, 100% crucial what I'm going to talk about, because we all have lots of names in our database. We have existing clients, of course. We have dormant accounts. We have prospects. We have referral sources. We have friends of referral sources. We've had people who we've met at all sorts of events. And all of these people in our marketing and sales database can be very valuable to us if they remember who the heck we are in the first place. So what happens is, back in the old days when we were running around to different networking events and seeing all sorts of people, and now when we're communicating them on Zoom and we're accumulating names and contact information, and you have a good conversation with someone, and then if you're not staying visible, the thought is that they're always having your name and your services right at the very top of their brain and are thinking about you morning, noon, and night. In fact, they get up in the morning and go, oh my gosh, I hope somebody comes to me who needs the services of Adrienne Miller. That's never going to happen. So how do you stay visible, front and center? I'm going to start by saying what you don't do. You don't say, hey, Jeff, hey, I'm just calling to check in. Or Jeff, I'm touching base, because Jeff, being a very busy person, and frankly, even if he wasn't busy, he was just sitting there doing nothing, after 1 or 2 checking in and touching base calls, he's ready to move on. There's really nothing going on then. So you need to figure out how you can be a benefit, how you can be a value add to a relationship, even before there's a real business relationship going on. So you can check in, you can touch base, but you can use, which I have used forever and a day, and apologies for those who've heard this, but I too am going to preach this forever. It's the 3 I's, and it helps me remember what it is, and hopefully it can help you. And the first one is introductions. We live and die by our introductions, proactive introductions. Don't wait for someone to say, do you know fill in the blank, because the chances are you're going to have those questions asked of you very infrequently. Okay. Instead, be proactive. Put people together because they have business synergies. Put them together because they both like to travel and they're going to bond on a conversation about a country. Put them together because they both like to have a drink after work, and maybe after the pandemic, they'll get together at some groovy bar that each one of them knows and share a cocktail. Put them together proactively. Introductions, and do cyber introductions. You can't always make phone calls, and you can't always be part of them getting together, but you certainly can do a cyber introduction. So introductions are first. Invitations. How freaking easy is invitations? Because how many invitations to Zoom webinars and Zoom things are you getting these days? 5, 10, 20? Okay. So what's to say you can't press forward instead of deleting it and say, hey, I'm not able to attend this, but there's a great speaker. Or I'm not able to attend this, but I know the person who moderates this is just awesome. You should consider it. Remember, you're doing it so you stay visible to the person you're sending it to. You may or may not care all that much about that speaker. You're certainly not sending them to anything that's a totally bogus event, but remember why you're doing it. There's a little bit of selfish interest in there. So sharing invitations should be a win for the person you're sending it to, a win for the person who's running the event. We love to have people at our events. Share the invitation. So that's introductions, invitations, both are real easy. Really easy. The introductions you can make exist in your database. The invitations are coming to you anyway. All they require you to do is press forward. And the last is information. Articles, TED Talks, newsletters, things that have value. And if you don't get that to you coming in, you should be subscribing to some informational newsletters and white papers that come to us, and we just receive them. But I tend to go on to TED Talks and I'll put in a keyword, and then I'll sit for, it's almost like my break in the day. I'll sit for a half hour and watch some of the most brilliant minds and incredible speakers speak about a topic that I do want to share. And I'll take the link to that. And very honestly, I'm going to send it out to people and go, oh my God, this person, look at what they say at 4 minutes in, and it blows my mind. It just blows my mind. What do you think? Whether you reply back to me or not, take 20 minutes and watch this, or take 10 minutes and watch this. You're going to thank me. You're going to share this link with other people too. And I do that. It honestly, again, selfishly, it helps me get smarter. It puts me on the radar screen for people. And I'm staying on the grid with a value add: introductions, invitations, and information, not checking in, not touching base, and showing that I remember you. Okay. So now you remember me.
That is brilliant. Yeah. So look, touching base or checking in is better than nothing, but far better if you actually add some value. And I ran a sales meeting this morning, and one of the things I said was that, right now people are craving contact. For most of us who don't work out of our homes most of the time. Now, I have for years and years, and I believe you have too, Adrian. Obviously this pandemic has been crazy for all of us, but it's less crazy for somebody like us who's used to working at home. However, for those people who are used to working in an office environment, they're craving contact. So this is a great time to reach out by phone and add some value. That truly is the key. And when you do that, look, there's always that little voice in their head that goes, I know why Adrian's doing this, but the larger part really does feel special. And I believe that's one thing we absolutely positively want to do with our prospects and our customers. We want to make them feel special, like they're appreciated as humans and like we actually care about them. Whether you do or don't is besides the point. I hope you do, but at least act like you care about them, because people do business with people they like and trust. And unless you show some interest in them, why should they like you, or why should they trust you? I want to just go back to something we talked about earlier, because I didn't ask you about this, but I'd love to know, what's your feeling about emailing proposals? We were talking about the best next action step. And what's your feeling about emailing proposals?
So I used to not like to do that. I used to like to hand deliver it. So I'm not hand delivering anything anymore. And plus, some of the proposals, like you, are going to people who are not in our backyard or within any reasonable distance away. So you're not going to be flying wherever to deliver a proposal. I really work hard at having my proposal being almost a complete confirmation of things we talked about, and maybe things in an email that I said. I say this, I don't want this to be a surprise. I don't want you to not have a good understanding. So this is pretty much my game plan here. I may send them a little flow chart. Yes, I always talk about price. And here's why. If I'm going to get pushback on price, gosh, I'm so glad to have it on the phone, because now I can re-engineer what I'm going to deliver. It may not be a total loss. All right, I would have liked it to be this size program, but maybe, all right, I can scale it down and I can work within your budgetary constraints. But if you hadn't told me your budget, there's a good chance I would have sent you the proposal. You would have seen that number and you would have said, oh my God, there's no way, she's never going to be able to do this. I don't want to talk about it. I'm embarrassed. I can't save face and say we don't have that money, and I want to do it before I have cast my die. So my proposals are really almost confirmation of everything we talked about, and I can email them because, man, you have already heard it, seen it, and pretty much agreed with it. A lot of the time, now that's not to say I have 100% close rate, because we would all know I'm lying and Jeff would be kicking me under the proverbial virtual table saying liar. But the fact is, because things change, you could agree and then you could have a new boss come in, or your boss could take away the budget or whatever it may be. But my close rate is much higher when you've signed off on something before you get the quote formal document. So yeah, I do email. And now, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
now that the mail doesn't get delivered anymore.
So the thing we have to keep in mind, I think, is that if you do not have that pricing conversation before and the first time that your prospect is going to see your pricing is in your proposal, then my coaching would be send over the proposal minus the pricing page and save that for when you're actually going over it with people, and refuse to talk about it unless they get on the phone with you. Because I don't want it to be a shock to people. The other thing I'll tend to do is I want to make an appointment. If I'm going to deliver a proposal via email, great. When would be a good time to talk about that, Adrian? Because you might have some questions. I want to make sure I answer those questions for you, so that when you do have, so that you have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision whenever you're ready. So I want an appointment, and I do want to ask that budget question. You know, a lot of times people are hesitant to ask, you know, do you have a budget for this, or what's in your budget? And the reason they're hesitant to ask is because prospects often don't want to let you know. And I think we should all understand the psychology here. Your prospect believes that if they tell you what their budget is, that you're going to come back with a proposal for $1 less than that. So my advice would be, when you're talking about budget, you know, if I was saying, hey Adrian, you know, what kind of a budget did you have in mind for this project? And Adrian just goes, I don't really know, you know, give me your best shot. I'm going to say, great. So if I came back with $1 million proposal, would that be okay? And I'm guessing Adrian would go, no, I'm not going to do something for $1 million. $500,000? No. Eventually, we're going to get to a point where, you know, well, I'll say, is it 100,000 in range? No. Well, why don't you tell me? Here's the thing, Adrian. You probably think that I'm going to come back with whatever number you tell me minus $1, but that's not really the case. What I'm looking for is, I don't want to waste your time. I don't want to come back with an $80,000 proposal if all you've got in the budget is 40. So in order to not waste your time, can you give me a rough idea of what you were thinking? And I think it's useful to note, I'm making it about them. I'm trying to do something good for you. Now, of course, what I'm really trying to do is something good for me, because the more I understand about your budget, the greater the chance of me coming back with a proposal that works for you, just like Adrian was talking about. But I make it about them by saying, I don't want to waste your time. If I don't want to come back with an $80,000 proposal if you've got 20 grand. Adrian?
I also use, I talk about how everything we do, as you do, is customized so we can scale it appropriately. And I point out that when you go into a car dealership, I don't care which car it is, there are various models. You can get a Mercedes for the highest end, and I don't know the prices, so let me just plug in $115,000, maybe it's, I don't know, idea. You can get a Mercedes for $115,000. You can get a Mercedes for $40,000. Okay, and there's different models in between. You've got to be talking about the car, okay, that works right for you. And so to have the conversation about their budgetary requirements is a very valid conversation, and is respectful for both parties. It's mutual respect, because I don't want the car dealer to be talking to me about a car that's $100,000 more than I want or can spend. That's disrespectful of my time. And I, in fact, would not be wasting his time moseying over to the highest end car and spending and go, oh, can I test drive this with you? And can I sit in this with you? When I know that's absolutely not in the cards. So it's real speak, it's honest,
Yep.
And let's all be in the same game, you know?
Perfect. Let's move on to my tip number 3, which is asking better questions. So I want you to get out of your head the idea that sales is about your great presentation skills and your strong closing skills. Like Adrian, I'm a professional presenter. We know how to stand on a stage and present with the best of them. So we know how to give a great presentation when it comes to telling people what we're going to do. And I know how to strong close. I sold Encyclopedia Britannica door to door for 8 years. I know how to close a deal, but I promise you that both Adrian and myself, with all our decades and decades of experience, Neither of us is good enough, and together we're not good enough to talk anybody into anything that they don't want, don't need, or can't afford, and neither of us would want to do that. I believe I'm speaking for both of us. The way we make sales, the way we close business, is by asking better questions. And what you need to do is figure out what makes sense to your prospect regarding what you have to sell them. In our case, is sales training or networking or writing or marketing in Adrian's case, or in my case, sales training or coaching or outsourced sales management. But I have to ask the questions to find out what makes sense to them about those things. So if you'd like to close more business, stop focusing so much on your presentation skills and strong closing skills, and really focus on asking better questions. That's to me, it's the most important key to selling. Adrian?
Yeah, I think you actually ask questions even before you start presenting, because you might have to change your presentation on the fly when you realize, wow, I didn't know that. Take that concept out of my presentation.
Yeah, I don't present anything until I've asked a bunch of, how would I know what to present?
Exactly.
Until I've asked questions. Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. So following up with questions is my next important thing. Is how do you handle don't need it, don't want it, don't have any money, don't have any budget, happy with what we currently have, not now, maybe later, have to think about it, I'm not the right person, and all the pushback, objections, obstacles, and challenges you get anytime you are trying to persuade someone that you have a product or service that's in sync with their wants and needs. Okay. Because even if you see it incredibly clearly, even if you have probed exquisitely, you will get pushback. We are sales adverse. And even if you are almost the anti-sales person, even if you are incredibly consultative, even if you do everything right in terms of uncovering exactly what they need, you will get objections. So old school, oh my gosh, so old school. Hey, I understand exactly what you're saying. Slow it down. Okay. Just slow it down, because they're kind of pushing back. And the more fast you go, the easier they are going to be to either hang up the phone or push you out of their office. Hey, I understand what you're saying. I have had other clients say exactly the same thing, or clients that felt the same way. And what they found is, and then you resell your point of differentiation or your core benefit against their objection. And it's hard to have, I write lots of sales call guides. I don't want to call them scripts anymore, because it makes it feel, the person feel that they're supposed to read this, and that would be god awful. But kind of a roadmap, getting you from point A to point B to point C. And it's hard to do the objection part without being just generic, because everyone's objections are very personal to them, and the resell point is even more personal to them. But you have to know that. So just like before you really engage in prospecting and selling, I always ask people to come up with 10 or 15 really good questions. I always say you should have in your head, and probably written down, what are you going to say when someone says, we can't afford it? What are you going to say when they're happy with what they're currently doing? What are you going to say when they have to think about it? You know, because that's the critical moment in the dialogue, because at that moment, you can kick the door back open for more conversation, or they fall away. And some of the saddest moments I have are going through someone's CRM with them when I'm doing sales coaching, and I'll look at the notes and it'll go, call back next month, call back next month, call back next month, call back next month. You're smiling, Jeff, because I know you've seen that. And I go, why are you calling back? What's going to be different next month? Well, they told me to call back. They're not ready. Well, why aren't they ready? What's going to be different in July than June? If you know, and there could be a really good reason. That's perfectly fine. That's valid. but you have to know. Otherwise, you're going to get another stall and the person keeps pushing you away, and you will have a full year of not now, maybe later, or I have to think about it, or I haven't looked at your website yet. Oh, it's awesome. We're on the phone now. Here, really, it'll take us 2 seconds. And trust me, my website's not that big. Let's look at it together. I can tell you the stuff you don't want to look at anyway. You have to be prepared for pushback, stalls, obstacles, and objections. And I promise you, you'll be in a much better position.
Yeah, and I think one of the things to keep in mind with objection handling, well, first of all, is there's no reason if you've been in sales for more than 2 weeks that you should be hearing new objections. Adrian just listed off 7 or 10 that we hear each and every day. I've heard them for 47 years. Adrian's heard them for years also. She started selling when she was 10. That's when she tells you she's been in sales for 42 years. But yeah, there's no excuse for standing there and going, oh, I never heard that before. You should really be prepared. And the other thing to keep in mind is the typical salesperson, when they get an objection, they put up their dukes and start fighting. That's the last thing you want to do. You don't want to push against somebody who objects, because when you push against somebody, they push back. What you really want to do is wrap your arms around them and do what Adrian said. There's a name for what she was talking about. It's called feel, felt, found. It's one of the oldest, I hate to use the word tricks, but techniques in the book, but it still works.
It works.
We're letting people know we understand where you're coming from. You're all right. You're not the only person who ever thought of that. Most people do. And here's how we worked it out before, because when you show somebody that they're okay, it's fine to think that way, and you've helped others work this out before, people start thinking, oh, maybe it'll work out for me too. And that's what we want to do. We want to kind of carry people along in our hands, taking great care of them to get them to the point where they choose to do business with us. And that brings us to my next tip, which goes along with asking better questions. It's listening actively. And if asking questions is the key to selling, the second thing is listening actively. And Adrian used that technical sales training term before, and I'm going to use it here. Most of us in sales, we suck. We suck at listening because we think we get paid to talk. Now, Adrian and I get paid to talk, but not when we're selling. When Adrian's on a sales call or I'm on a sales call, we get paid to listen, ask questions, and listen actively. And active listening is very different from what most of us do most of the time, which is what I call passive listening. Passive listening is like you don't really care, and you're just filling in time between asking one question and another, and you kind of wish the person who's answering the question that you asked them would really shut up so you could get your next bit of genius out. Well, stop doing that and listen actively, because I believe this. If you ask the right questions and listen actively, your prospect will tell you everything you need to know in order to help them choose to do business with you. And I'm going to say that again because that's so important. If you ask the right questions and listen actively, your prospect will tell you everything you need to know in order to help them choose to do business with you. So please ask better questions, but listen to the answers. Adrian, your next tip.
Yeah, there's nothing worse though to be an observer of someone going through their sales presentation and asking questions and missing that step because the prospect has told them everything, yet they have not listened, and either another question went over their head, the buying signal flew by, they are now off somewhere else, and they've disconnected from that prospect. And I use the line, no one ever lost a sale because they ask questions. If you think, because salespeople are scared to ask questions. If you think you're going to ask a question, you're going to lose a sale, then you were never going to have the sale in the first place. That's my.
And before you go on, I just have to say one more thing because you gave me a brilliant opening. You know, salespeople are often worried about time. So you're in somebody's office or you're on a call or a Zoom meeting, and you think that they're going to say, "Okay, I've got to go." So you're rushing. You're not asking enough questions. You're not asking the right questions. You're just getting to your pitch. Stop doing that. First of all, I can tell you this. In 16 years of owning my own business, I only deal with presidents, CEOs, business owners, and the global god or goddess of sales, each and every one of them, very busy people. I don't deal with anybody who's not busy. I know Adrian doesn't, and you probably don't either. I have yet to be kicked out of anybody's office because the meeting took too long. And my first meeting with an executive like that is typically 90 minutes, 90. I can't remember the last, in fact, I don't think I was ever kicked out of anybody's office and said, gee, Jeff, my next meeting's come up because you asked too many questions. And by the way, if that ever happened, I'd simply schedule another meeting. Wow, we were having a great time exchanging a lot of information. Why don't we schedule another meeting? I can get more information and tell you a little bit about us. But yeah, don't rush that. Listening actively is crucial. Adrienne?
Totally. Okay, my next tip, because deviate a little bit from sales tactics here and sales techniques, but I guess it's part of prospecting and business development, which is networking. I do a lot of networking. I've grown my business that I started when I was actually not 10, Jeff, I was only 7 when I started my business when I was 7 through networking. I am instinctively a very good networker. I think because I do listen and I am really interested. I really am interested. So I'm a good networker. But beside those two things, I'm a very proactive networker. And I think that is because I'm in sales. And I don't take opportunities, I make opportunities. So I'm strategic and proactive. So I look for ways I can put people together that will be mutually beneficial. You need to do that as well. Networking needs to play a role in your business development endeavors. You need to factor in time in that week, that 7 days of business development endeavors, learning and development in your own personal education, working with clients, doing the work, all those things that comprise our week. You have to factor in networking. No, you're not factoring going to meetings now and having dinners and drinks and all that stuff, but there's loads of Zoom things going on. But you need to be proactive. Networking is not just attending a meeting. In fact, if that is all it is for you, don't bother. Start happy hour earlier. Do not waste your time. And if you're not going to approach networking in a proactive and strategic way, again, don't waste your time. Proactive, again, I think I talked about it before, means putting people together because you see synergies, or even think about this. You know an IT person who works with small to mid-sized businesses and between 20 and 100 people. You know someone who does PR, graphic design, web development, it doesn't matter, for the same size market, all right? They're not competitors. They're not competitors at all, but they're working with the same type of marketplace, possibly talking to decision makers, the same decision maker. Why not put them together? Because if I'm the IT person working with a company and I'm getting close with the people and I'm finding out, wow, we really need to do our website over, etc. Now you've got opportunities to make connections that are substantive. So put people together because they share commonalities as to the industries they work in, the size of companies they work in, the types of decision makers they work in. Try to set yourself a goal. Do you do 5 introductions a month, 5 a day, 3 a month? It doesn't really matter so much as if you set a quantitative goal to keep you focused on what it is you have to do. Be very strategic. Networking takes time. Do not expect it to bear fruit within the first week of doing it. You can know somebody for a very long time. And understand that the people you're networking with may never be your client, but they can be your referral source. They can be an excellent referral source, and cultivate them as much as you would a client, because one awesome referral source, wow, they can introduce you to ongoing clients, right?
Yep.
Great person to know.
Absolutely. So Adrienne is an expert at networking, and I'm going to give her a chance before we finish up today. She actually runs a networking organization. I'm going to let her share some information about that towards the end of this program in a few minutes. But one thing about networking, I think, is it's crucial to remember you're really not there to sell your services to the people in the group. You're there to turn them into your extended sales team. And that means you've got to have a great brief commercial so that they completely understand what you bring to the table. But it really does not happen at the meeting every week or every 2 weeks or however often. It's getting together and getting to know people. If Adrienne and I were in the same group, I'd want to go out to breakfast and lunch and dinner and drinks with Adrienne, which I do anyways, because she's fascinating. I'd always want to do any of those things with her. But it's really about getting to know the other person, not just what they do, but also to get them to know as a human being, because who would you be introducing this person to? Who would you be referring them to? Well, if you're like me, you're going to be referring them to your clients and your prospect. And after my 3 kids and my dog, who's sleeping behind me right now, quietly, thankfully, that's the most valuable property I have, my prospects and my clients. And I'm not going to put anyone in front of them that I don't trust implicitly to make sure that I look good for making that introduction. I want to serve my client or prospect by helping hook them up with somebody who might do them some good and vice versa. But I want to make sure that I look good here. And the last thing I want is somebody calling me and saying, oh, why'd you introduce me to Adrienne Miller? Not that that's a bad example, not that that would ever happen, but why'd you introduce me to so-and-so? Why'd you waste my time? I actually had a guy I introduced to someone because he was looking for a job, and I knew that the guy I was introducing him to was looking to hire somebody. Well, I got a call later that day saying, I spoke to your friend. He asked me if he could borrow $200 before he even gets started. That's not an introduction I was happy about making. In fact, I wiped him off of LinkedIn. He's not a connection anymore. So be strategic with your networking and do it regularly. And again, I'm going to let Adrienne talk in just a few minutes about the networking group she runs. We could probably spend an entire hour just talking about networking. And I think, I don't know the exact date, but Ellen Volpe, another next expert on networking, is going to be joining us here in sometime in the next month or two. My last tip for the day is it's about your come from. You can't see it, but I'm pointing right to my gut, right, my rather large gut right now. Your come from when you're selling should always be helping. It's serving. How can I serve you? If you just need to make some money, I get it. Me too. I still need to make money too, but my come from is always, I'm here to serve the person that I'm talking with. I'm here to serve the company and the people. I know that I speak for both Adrienne and myself that when somebody chooses to do business with us, I take it as a huge honor and a huge responsibility, because what they're saying to me and Adrienne is, we trust you with the future of our company. And so I put a lot of stock into that. And I always come from truly serving. Zig Ziglar, who passed away several years back, was a famous motivational speaker. And he used to say that the word sell comes from the Swedish word sälja, S-E-L-J-E, which means to serve. I really like the thought of that. Of course, I'm the kind of guy who looked it up in Google Translate, and it does not mean to serve. But I like the thought of it. Even though Zig was just saying that, I really like the thought of it. So when you're selling, your thought should truly be, how can I help this prospect? How can I help this prospect choose to become a customer? And then how can I help them do whatever they're trying to do better? Because that's our job when we're selling, to help people do what they're doing better, more effectively, more efficiently, quicker, cheaper, whatever it is. But that's our job. So always, always come from service. And Adrienne, your final tip?
Okay, I love that. I really love that. My last final tip isn't quite as inspiring because I'm like feeling inspired now. It's about not BSing yourself with productivity. Seriously, I know some really awesome salespeople. They have all these tactics down. They're selling a terrific product or service, and they're nowhere near where they should be in terms of their sales. And why might that be? They're not doing it enough. They're not productive enough. I don't care who you are. You can be have the best skills on your basketball team or your hockey team or whatever it may be. And if you're not in the game, then no one gets to take advantage of your skills and watch you score. You have to do it. It's work. There is a certain amount of prospecting and business development that has to be done. You have to be up at bat. You can't be a well-kept secret. productivity counts. And so you do have to keep track. I'm not a real numbers girl. That was not my strong suit. I was not screaming to go into a math class. But the fact is, you have to keep statistics. Sales is a combination of quantitative and qualitative. But I need to tell you, I don't care how good you are. I don't care how much you get from any sales consultant and trainer. If you're not deploying these skills, if you're not making the calls, having the appointments, sending out the proposals, staying in contact, sending out emails, sharing information, being on social media, etc., 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 you're never going to get enough return on time or return on investment. So don't BS yourself. Keep your statistics, and you may look, when you look at your, I don't care if you're using Salesforce or HubSpot or one-page CRM or an Excel spreadsheet or an old-fashioned card box. Not that I know about anything old-fashioned, but an old-fashioned card box. If you're not keeping track about how productive you are, you're probably being less productive than you could be.
Yeah, you need to track your activity, because your activity will predict your results. And I can't tell you how many times, and I'm sure once again, I'm speaking for Adrian, we get asked a lot of questions because as outside consultants, presidents and CEOs and vice presidents of sales ask us our advice on things, typically about how do we increase sales, because they know that we're going to give them the straight dope. We're going to give them the blatant truth, the unvarnished truth. And we have no skin in the game one way or the other. So they're going to get the honest truth from us. And I can tell you that I often exaggerate things to make a point, or tell a story just to make a point. There's no exaggeration here. 50% of the time, the answer I give to the questions I get from presidents, CEOs, and VPs of sales about increasing sales, 50% of the time the answer is, oh, here's a good thing. Tell your lazy ass salespeople to go see more prospects. Because if you're not in the game, you could be a home run hitter every single time, but if you're not at bat enough, you're just not going to hit enough home runs. So you've got to constantly be in the game. If you give me 2 seconds, I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. Adrian, I would like you, if you would, we're sharing your contact information right now. Would you please tell people what are the things that you do and how can they get in touch with you?
Okay. So what you have is, it's funny though, I have 4 websites, and the 2 that are up are the 2 that are going to be and are in the midst of being reworked right now. So Adrian's Network, especially now in this era of Zoom, go to adriansnetwork.com. There is a calendar for July, and there is going to be a calendar for August very soon, and hop on one of our calls. It's their networking calls. Sometimes they're presenters, excellent presenters. Sometimes we just go into breakout rooms, small groups, 3, 4, 5, or 6 people. Sometimes we're around the virtual table. But Adrian's Network is a good place to play with and explore your networking chops and make some good contacts and connections. We are truly a community, and there's about 400 people or so. And my sales consulting. Blatant Truth, however, is www.theblatanttruth.com. Go there, ask for a free download of that book. And there are 50 chapters ranging from 2 to 4 pages, each covering a very narrow topic. You don't have to read the whole book. You can look in the table of contents and go, gosh, I could use a little refresher on this, or I can use another perspective on that, or I need some fine tuning on this. I believe excellent salespeople do the fundamentals consistently and better than everyone else. It's built on fundamentals. If you look at a professional baseball player, a professional hockey player, they're doing the same things our kids do, just better. Okay, they really are. It's built on fundamentals. So I want you to download that book. It's a great way to refresh. And if you run a sales team, if you have people who you have doing the selling for you, give them the book. and let them shore up on some of the skill sets that they need to be rehashed and refreshed.
Great. And you can always go to adrianmiller.com. Her phone number is 516-445-1135. And her email is amiller@adrianmiller.com. And I believe, Adrian, don't you also do sales writing and some marketing?
Yeah, thank you. So I wrote The Blatant Truth. I wrote another book on customer service as well, and I've been writing forever. And it's one of the things I really love to do. It's my place to go when my brain gets very cluttered. I'm just happy sitting down and closing everything out and writing an article. So now wordsworkcopywriting.com was born many years ago, and we write blogs and newsletters and social media and websites and white papers and anything that you need that needs words. And I have two partners in that because I believe not everyone can write everything. I'm the queen of short form, anecdotal, a little bit mouthy, a little bit irreverent. And for the more scholarly work, you see one of my partners.
Thank you. So I'd like to thank you so much for joining me today, Adrian. Adrian is what I call a friendly competitor who I have the utmost respect for. She has invited me. She's very generous. She's invited me to join her on the stage many times. I've never been to an AZNet meeting, although I only hear rave reviews. And the only reason I'm not there is because I do respect Adrian. And I don't need to go network with her in her backyard regarding what I do, because we do a lot of the same things. But I can say everybody who's in that group raves about it. They're all Adrian Miller raving fans, and it's incredibly cost effective. So if you're looking for a networking place or a home, or maybe just an addition to where you're networking now, check out AZNet. Adrian, thank you so much for the time and the wisdom you've shared with us today. I really appreciate it. Any last words for you?
Yeah, where's your last page with all your contact info?
We don't have to promote that today, but
okay.
You guys can always reach out to me directly through the Sales Pro Network here on Facebook, also on LinkedIn. My email address is jeff@jgsalespro.com. And as always, I thank you all for investing the time. I hope you're getting great value out of the group. And if you would, please, I'd be so kind, please share the group with your friends. I'm looking to grow this group huge for all of us. The more people that are involved, the more questions that get asked, the more coaching that gets done, and we all benefit and prosper. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make it a great one, everybody.
Thank you, Jeff. Always fun.
Bye now.